A rich man humiliated his employee in front of his guests and dismissed her without paying a cent. Years later, he needed her help, and what she responded made him cry with regret. In the most exclusive area of the city stood the imposing mansion of Joachim Johnson, a place radiating luxury and sophistication in every detail. The facade of marble and reflective glass, the meticulously maintained gardens, and the fountains adorning the expansive patio were symbols of the wealth Joachim had amassed through years of relentless work. To him, every corner of his property was a reminder of his efforts, of sacrifices that, according to him, no one else could understand. But to those around him, he was just a man who had made money his only identity, someone who knew no other way to relate than from his position of power. From a young age, Joachim had pursued success with fierce determination. He wanted it all: fortune, respect, and above all, absolute control over his life and those who worked for him. At 50, he owned one of the country's most renowned luxury food companies, a firm supplying the best restaurants, hotels, and cafes. His products were synonymous with quality, but also exclusivity, reflecting Joachim's image: unreachable, selective, and powerful. That night, Joachim was preparing for one of his frequent business galas, events he organized to strengthen his network and showcase his success. In the main hall of his mansion, guests arrived one by one, dressed in elegant suits and gowns. Conversations floated in the air, filled with sophisticated words and calculated glances, and although laughter was common, Joachim knew most of these people were there solely for their own interests, expecting something from him. But he didn't care. He preferred that empty admiration to sincerity, which, in his opinion, was just a form of vulnerability. As he walked among the guests, Joachim encountered his partner and friend, Eduardo, who greeted him with a smile. They exchanged comments on the state of the business, while Joachim cast approving looks around him, pleased with the atmosphere he had created. For him, this was his perfect life, surrounded by important people, receiving compliments, and not having to worry about anyone but himself. There was no room for compassion or sentimentality. Those were luxuries he deemed insignificant and unfit for his world. Yet despite Joachim's facade of calm and confidence, a constant unease tormented him. Isabella, his only daughter, was absent. This was not unusual. For months she had chosen to distance herself, weary of her father's coldness and the indifference with which he treated those around him. Isabella had grown up in the same mansion where the gala was now taking place, but unlike Joachim, she had never felt pride in her family's power and wealth. To her, those riches were nothing but an empty facade. Isabella saw in her father a man who had chosen money over love, ambition over empathy, and she couldn't bear how he looked down on those he considered inferior. Joachim, however, viewed Isabella as a rebellious young woman who had made a mistake, unable to grasp what he had sacrificed to reach where he was. In his mind, he justified his daughter's distance as a passing phase, convinced that in time she would understand that true respect and success were all that mattered in life. But even as he tried to ignore it, Isabella's absence left him with a void that parties and flattery could not fill. The guests mingled in the hall, pouring champagne and chatting animatedly, while Joachim watched with satisfaction. For him, these events were more than mere social gatherings. They were a confirmation of his status and importance. Each guest represented a piece in his web of influence, and Joachim kept them close, controlling every interaction like a chess game he always won. But while his partners admired him and employees obeyed him without question, Joachim ignored the fact that his life, no matter how successful it seemed, lacked something essential: humanity. From a distance, his head servant informed him that dinner was ready, and Joachim made his way to the dining room to join his guests. However, in a corner of his mind, a thought persisted. He knew something was broken in his life, something that luxury and success could not repair, but he never allowed himself to pause long enough to think about it. Each time that emptiness arose, he filled it with more work, more luxuries, more power. That night, however, fate was ready to teach him a lesson that would begin to reveal just how much he had lost due to his insensitive lifestyle. Thus, surrounded by people who respected him only for his position and the wealth he flaunted, Joachim immersed himself in his gala, unaware that this was just the beginning of a change that would shake the foundations of his perfect life. The loneliness he had so long ignored was about to take a form he could no longer evade, and the consequences of his disdain for others would start to demand their toll in ways he could not foresee. Anna worked tirelessly. From early morning until late at night, she traversed the mansions of the city, cleaning, organizing, and ensuring each place was immaculate. Her life, though hard, was filled with an unyielding purpose, securing the well-being of her son, Daniel. Despite the difficulties, she maintained a warm smile, a determination that drove her to persevere and find strength where others would give up. At 35, Anna had learned to live with uncertainty. Since Daniel, her only son, had been diagnosed with a chronic illness requiring frequent and expensive treatments, her life had changed forever. Doctors warned her that Daniel's condition could improve over time, but the treatments were necessary for him to lead a stable life. The medications and constant appointments with specialists had become a financial burden, but also a motivation. Her love for her son and desire to see him healthy pushed her to keep fighting each day. Anna was not alone. She had the unwavering support of her sister Lucia, who cared for Daniel while she worked. Lucia was a kind-hearted woman, always ready to offer words of encouragement when things seemed unbearable. With a gentle gaze and steady hands, Lucia became a pillar for Anna, helping her raise Daniel and supporting her during moments when sadness or fatigue threatened to overwhelm her. She knew the days were long and the nights exhausting for her sister, but she also recognized that Anna had a strong heart, filled with kindness and an almost unbreakable hope. That morning, like so many others, Anna left her house before the sun rose, thermos of coffee in one hand and her cleaning uniform in the other. She walked briskly, mentally recalling the tasks she would need to perform at Joachim Johnson's mansion, the influential businessman and owner of an immense fortune. Working in his mansion was a daily challenge, a place where every detail had to be perfect and where the atmosphere always felt tense. Employees lived in constant fear of making a mistake that could cost them their jobs, and although Anna kept a positive attitude, she was also aware that a wrong move could mean losing her only stable source of income. Upon her arrival, Anna met the other workers in the mansion, who exchanged barely a few words before starting their activities. Joachim had a well-known reputation among the employees. He was a stern, cold man with no trace of empathy. To him, his workers were nothing more than tools, faceless, nameless people, replaceable and disposable. Most of them tried to avoid him at all costs, aware that any mistake could lead to reprimands, punishment, or even dismissal. Anna, despite her kind nature and habit of smiling quietly while she worked, was not immune to the pressure of this environment. She knew Joachim did not value anyone, that for him they were merely pawns in his vast power game. However, as she cleaned the hallways and polished the gleaming surfaces of the mansion, Anna found comfort in thinking about Daniel and their little family. In those moments, she reminded herself that every sacrifice was worth it for her son's well-being, and that as long as she had the strength to work, she would continue moving forward. Daniel was her greatest inspiration. With his big, curious eyes and innocent smile, he could make Anna's exhaustion disappear every time she hugged him upon returning home. Despite his illness, Daniel was a lively boy, a little fighter who unknowingly gave his mother the reason to keep going. Although the illness kept him resting for long periods and often prevented him from attending school like other children, Daniel never complained. He understood in his innocence that his mother did everything possible to care for him, and so, each day, he tried to show her his gratitude with small gestures: a homemade drawing, an unexpected hug, a contagious laugh that brightened their home. That afternoon, after a long day, Anna returned to her modest home, tired but with a calm smile on her face. Upon opening the door, she found Daniel playing with wooden blocks under the watchful gaze of Lucia, who welcomed her with a relieved smile. Daniel ran to hug her, and in that moment, Anna felt all the fatigue of the day fade away. Her son's joy was all she needed to remember that, no matter the challenges, her efforts had a purpose that outweighed any sacrifice. After a simple dinner and helping Daniel get ready for bed, Anna sat with Lucia at the small kitchen table. Lucia, worried about her sister's and nephew's future, tried to encourage her to take breaks and care for herself. But Anna, with a determined look, explained that each day was an opportunity to fight for Daniel's well-being. "I can't afford to rest," she said firmly, though her eyes revealed the exhaustion from years of effort. She knew life wasn't fair and that every penny counted, especially to cover her son's treatments. However, for Anna, that difficult life was also a privilege, because she could be the example Daniel needed, the support her family deserved. That night, while watching Daniel sleep, Anna felt a mix of hope and fear. She knew the stability her job provided was fragile, and it only took a small mistake for everything to crumble. But as always, she repeated to herself that no matter how many obstacles arose, she would push through for him. Her love for Daniel and her faith in the future gave her the strength to face each day, even with hands marked by hard work and feet worn out from long walks. Inside her, Anna held a fire that nothing and no one could extinguish, a fierce determination that reminded her that every effort, every tear, and every smile had a greater purpose. As she drifted off to sleep that night, unaware of what fate had in store for her, Anna felt a fleeting peace, a calm that filled her with strength to face whatever came next. She didn't know that in a few days, her life would transform in ways she could never have imagined, and that humiliation and disdain would confront her with a new reality. But although she was unaware, that same pain would mark the beginning of a journey of resilience that would change her life forever. That night, Joachim Johnson's mansion was prepared to host dozens of high-profile guests. Business people, politicians, and prominent figures from the industry arrived at his home, greeting the host with flattering smiles and calculated words. Joachim moved among them with a cold, controlled confidence, relishing every compliment, every remark that reaffirmed his power and position in the business world. For him, these gatherings were a symbol of his success, an opportunity to present himself to the world as the unyielding man who had reached the top. Anna, assigned to clean the mansion during the event, had arrived before the first wave of guests, ensuring everything was spotless. It was an important night for Joachim, which meant there could be no mistakes. In the kitchen, supervisors and cleaning staff murmured nervously, aware that any error could lead to immediate dismissal. Anna worked silently, focused on her task and keeping herself out of the hustle and bustle of guests moving about with wine glasses in hand and exaggerated laughter. After a few hours, the event was in full swing, and the main hall was filled with laughter and animated conversations. Following her supervisor's instructions, Anna began collecting glasses and cleaning empty tables among the guests, maintaining a prudent distance and avoiding drawing attention. However, the atmosphere was tense, and Anna couldn't help but feel the pressure to be absolutely perfect with every move. In a moment of distraction, while carrying a tray of glasses, a guest who turned abruptly collided with her, causing one of the wine glasses she held to fall to the ground, shattering into 1,000 pieces against the marble. The sound of the broken glass echoed in the hall, causing several heads to turn towards her, including Joachim's, who was talking with an important business associate. Joachim rushed over, his eyes reflecting a contained rage that silenced everyone around. The guests watched expectantly, not intervening, as Joachim stood in front of Anna, casting her a look brimming with disdain. Anna, paralyzed, could barely stammer an apology, but before she could say anything, Joachim interrupted her, his voice cold and cutting. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" he snapped, raising his voice for everyone to hear. "This isn't your home, and it's clear that someone like you shouldn't be in a place like this. Can't you do your job right?" Is it that hard to follow simple instructions? Anna felt her cheeks burn with shame, unable to defend herself or tear her gaze away from her shoes. She could feel the eyes of the guests on her, some in surprise and others in indifference, as if this spectacle were just another form of entertainment for the night. The silence thickened, and while Anna wished to disappear at that moment, Joachim continued his tirade, showing no trace of compassion. "You're useless," he exclaimed, not caring about the impact of his words. "People like you should stick to much simpler jobs because it's clear you lack the ability to aspire to anything more. I'm doing you a favor by employing you here, and this is how you repay me." Joachim's tone was cruel, and each word pierced Anna like a blow, making her feel small and insignificant. With a tight heart and tears struggling to surface, she tried to apologize again, explaining that it had been an accident, but Joachim refused to listen. He interrupted her with a wave of his hand, as if she didn't even deserve the right to justify herself. "I don't want your excuses," he said with a chilling coldness. "In fact, I don't want you here at all. You're fired. Gather your things and leave my house immediately." Anna, stunned, felt her world crumble within seconds. The only source of income that allowed her to care for her son had just vanished before her eyes. She tried to ask him to reconsider, to at least let her finish the shift so she could get paid for the day, but Joachim dismissed her with an impatient gesture, as if her request were an insignificant annoyance. "You won't receive a cent," he declared with a disdainful smile. "Consider it a punishment for your incompetence. Now, get out." Joachim's words echoed in her head as she gathered her few belongings, feeling the weight of every gaze following her, judging her, some even with a hint of pity, but no one having the courage to intervene. Anna left the mansion with tears finally released, no longer caring if anyone saw her. She had lost much more than a job. She had lost her dignity, her only means of caring for Daniel, and the stability she had worked so hard to build. She wandered aimlessly through the city streets, feeling the cold night seep into her bones. That act of contempt and humiliation had left her shattered, and although she tried not to think about what it meant for her son's future, fear and helplessness were inevitable. She knew that upon arriving home, she would have to face her sister's worried gaze and find the words to explain to Daniel what had happened. When she opened the door to her home, Lucia greeted her with a mix of concern and tenderness, embracing her without asking questions, understanding the pain that Anna carried in her expression. Anna tried to recount what had happened, but her voice broke, and amid silent tears, she let her sister comfort her. That job, which though hard had been her only support, no longer existed, and with it, her only hope of caring for her son. Seeing the sadness in his mother's eyes, Daniel sensed that something terrible had occurred. Although he was just a child, he understood the sacrifices Anna made for him every day, and that night, his little heart filled with sadness and guilt. Silently, he approached his mother and hugged her, trying to convey his love and support, even if he couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of the situation. That night, Anna lay down feeling the weight of an injustice that seemed to crush her, thinking about how she would face the coming days. That act of cruelty had shattered something inside her, and although at that moment she only felt despair, something in her chest began to awaken. The humiliation and disdain from Joachim had planted in her a determination, a strength she still didn't fully understand, but she knew that somehow she would find a way to move forward. Unbeknownst to her, that night marked the beginning of a new life for Anna, a life she could not yet imagine, but which began to be forged from rage and pain. The future was uncertain, but in her heart, something ignited, and although it now seemed like a small spark, that flame was destined to grow and give her the strength to face whatever was to come. Anna began the next day with a mix of hope and desperation. After the humiliation suffered in Joachim's mansion, she woke up early, determined to find another job that would allow her to cover Daniel's needs and medical treatment. Lucia, her sister, sent her off with words of encouragement, reminding her that she was strong and that with her effort she would succeed. Anna clung to those words, feeling her sister's support as a small comfort amid the pain still throbbing in her chest. With her folder of references and work history, Anna walked through the city center, visiting cleaning offices, service companies, and even some hotels, hoping to secure new employment. However, at every place, she received evasive responses. Some looked at her strangely upon hearing her name, and others simply told her they had no vacancies available. The situation began to unsettle her, but she tried not to lose faith, trusting that someone would recognize her dedication and experience. Days passed, and each time she tried to seek employment, she faced the same silent rejection. After a week, Anna began to suspect something more was happening. It wasn't normal for every place she asked to turn her down without any explanation. It was then that an old co-worker, someone who had also worked at Joachim's mansion, secretly contacted her to warn her about what he had heard. Joachim had used his influence to ensure that no company in the city would hire her. The rumor that Anna was a problematic worker had spread, and under Joachim's recommendation, all the businesses in the area were rejecting her automatically. The news hit Anna like a brutal blow. Not only had they unjustly taken away her job, but now they were closing all the doors on her, condemning her to unemployment. Joachim hadn't been satisfied with humiliating her. His disdain had led him to manipulate the environment, making sure she wouldn't have another opportunity in the city. Anger and frustration mingled inside her, but beyond that, she felt fear. How would she support Daniel if she had no way to work? Anna's nights were filled with worry and silent tears. She knew her situation was untenable and that she couldn't continue without a source of income. Daniel, although trying to appear strong and cheerful, sensed his mother's sadness, and he began to sink into a silence that broke Anna's heart. She felt like she was failing, that the effort she had put in over the years wasn't enough. Even Lucia, always optimistic, seemed worried, and each night she tried to comfort her sister, reminding her that they would find a solution. But time passed, and Anna's desperation intensified. As expenses piled up and savings dwindled, options seemed to vanish one by one. No matter how many doors she knocked on, or how many companies she visited, the result was always the same. Joachim had ensured that she would have no chance, and each failed attempt became a reminder of the humiliation and cruelty she had experienced that fateful night. It was during a dawn, after a sleepless night, that Anna made the most difficult decision of her life. She knew there was no future for her in that city, that Joachim had done everything possible to destroy her reputation and close all the doors. Tears streamed silently down her face as she looked at Daniel's sleeping face, her reason for living, and understood that the only way out was to leave and start anew, even if it meant temporarily separating from him. The next morning, she shared her decision with Lucia. Her sister, although surprised, understood Anna's need to seek a new beginning. The promise of caring for Daniel and maintaining their home filled her with strength, and the two embraced silently, aware of how difficult that farewell would be. Anna assured them she would go to a nearby city, and that as soon as she found work, she would send money for Daniel's treatments and needs. With deep pain, she explained to Daniel that she would have to leave for a while to help him better, and although he tried to be strong, the tears in his eyes reflected the sadness of their separation. The next day, Anna took her few belongings and said goodbye to her home, carrying with her the love of her family and the hope for a better future. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to face any obstacle for her son's well-being. With each step she took, the weight of the humiliation and disdain she had suffered transformed into a silent determination, a promise that she would never again depend on someone who could treat her that way. Anna arrived in the new city with her heart heavy with mixed emotions. She had left her home behind, but her dreams of stability felt more alive than ever. She found a small place to stay and began working humble jobs, accepting any opportunity that came her way. During the day, she cleaned and tended to small businesses. At night, she attended management courses, aware that she needed to prepare for a better life. Every penny she earned she saved carefully, sending whatever she could to her sister to cover Daniel's expenses. Over time, with distance and effort, Anna began to notice a change within herself. The humiliation she had endured, far from crushing her, had ignited in her a spark of resilience she had never experienced before. She understood that she had the power to rebuild her life and leave the past behind, to grow beyond the pain and not allow the disdain of others to define her future. She knew it would be a long journey, but she also understood that now was her moment, that every sacrifice was a stepping stone to build the life she deserved. Meanwhile, back home, Daniel continued his treatments under Lucia's care. Despite the sadness he felt from his mother's absence, the boy kept the hope in his heart that one day he would be with her again. Through letters and occasional calls, Anna reminded him how much she loved him, and that every day she worked to give him the future he deserved. Those dark days, marked by closed doors and loneliness, became the foundation for a new chapter in Anna's life. The injustice and disdain from Joachim were now behind her, and although the road was uncertain, she had something no one could take from her, a strength born from her love for Daniel and the promise to overcome for him. Thus, amidst nights of work and days of study, Anna began to forge her own story, a tale of struggle and redemption that, unbeknownst to her, would change her life and many others. The new city unfolded before Anna like an unfamiliar territory, full of challenges and invisible opportunities. The first days were tough. Every corner, every building reminded her how far she was from home and what she had left behind. She missed Daniel with every fiber of her being, but every thought of him pushed her to keep moving forward, to cling to her promise of giving him a better life. Anna was ready to start from scratch, despite the obstacles and sacrifices it entailed. With her experience in cleaning jobs, Anna quickly found temporary positions in small businesses and homes throughout the city. Although the pay was modest and the hours long, she seized every opportunity to save, sending what she could to her sister Lucia to cover Daniel's medical expenses. Her days were exhausting, but each night, as she reflected on the moments of the day, she found a renewed sense of hope and purpose in the goal she had set for herself. Despite the long hours, Anna felt that something within her was changing. In each workplace, she met people who, like her, had faced difficulties and still found reasons to smile in their lives. It was in one of these jobs, cleaning a small consulting office, that she met Carmen, an older woman who had spent much of her life as an entrepreneur and was now advising women interested in starting their own businesses. Carmen noticed the spark of determination in Anna's eyes, and after several conversations, she encouraged her to consider her own dreams, her own projects. "You have an inner strength, Anna," Carmen told her one afternoon, "and that strength is the foundation of any successful venture." Intrigued by Carmen's words, Anna began to contemplate the idea of learning about business. At first, the notion seemed almost impossible. How could she, a single mother and worker with no experience outside of cleaning, become a businesswoman? But every time she thought of Daniel and the future she wanted for him, something inside her ignited. What if she could aspire to something more? What if she really held the power to transform her life? Driven by this new possibility, Anna enrolled in a night course on management at a community association for working women. The course was free and designed for women like her, who wanted to learn the basics of business and acquire the necessary tools to start. Although she initially felt out of place, Anna found herself surrounded by other women who were also striving to build a better future for themselves and their families. In that group, she found support and understanding, and every night, as she took notes and asked questions, she felt her dreams of a different life beginning to take shape. Carmen, who became her mentor, not only encouraged her to study, but also taught her the secrets of discipline and perseverance. Thanks to her guidance, Anna began to dream of an idea that had remained hidden inside her for years: baking. She had always enjoyed cooking, and when she was at home, preparing desserts for her family was her little refuge of peace. With Carmen's support and the skills she was acquiring in the course, Anna began to consider the possibility of opening a bakery, a place where she could share the flavors of her recipes and the love with which she prepared them. At first, the dream of having her own bakery seemed distant, almost impossible. However, the words of her classmates and Carmen's teachings motivated her to take the first step. With the money she managed to save, she bought basic ingredients and began experimenting with recipes in her small rented room. She spent entire nights trying out flavor combinations, striving to perfect every detail. Each cake she baked carried the taste of her effort and the dedication she poured into every step of the process. Slowly, Anna began selling her desserts to people in her neighborhood. First, it was the neighbors, and then the small local businesses that started placing orders for cakes for meetings and events. The quality of her products and the dedication with which she prepared them spread quickly throughout the neighborhood, and soon her small clientele multiplied. Anna not only offered desserts, each one carried her story, her struggle, and her desire for improvement, something that resonated with her customers and made them come back for more. Over time, Anna saved enough to rent a modest space on one of the main streets of the neighborhood. It was a small area, with plain walls and humble decor, but for Anna, it was the beginning of a dream come true. The bakery, which she decided to call Sweet Hopes, reflected the spirit of her struggle and resilience. At first, she only sold a few products, but each cake and cookie that came out of her kitchen was made with the love and dedication of someone who understood the value of every opportunity. The news of her bakery spread quickly, and her clientele continued to grow to the point that she had to work longer hours to fulfill the orders. Her business not only provided income, but also a sense of purpose that went beyond economics. The bakery became a meeting point in the community, a place where people came not only for the flavors, but for the story of perseverance it represented. Anna saw each sale as a small victory, each smile from her customers as a reward for all the sacrifices she had made until then. As her business thrived, Anna continued to send money to her sister for Daniel's treatment, who, despite the distance, remained her constant motivation. Through calls and letters, Anna told her son how her bakery was growing, how each day she took another step toward the future they both dreamed of. Daniel, although he missed her deeply, felt immense pride in his mother, knowing that every sacrifice she made was for his well-being. Anna's success was a sign to her that fate was giving her a second chance. She had transformed pain and humiliation into a source of strength that propelled her forward, and with each passing day, her self-confidence grew. The baking, which had started as a small hope, was becoming something significant, a project that exceeded her expectations and provided her with a security she had never had before. Anna understood that her past would not define her, that the disdain and injustice she had faced in Joachim's mansion had become the foundation of her success. Sweet Hopes was not just a bakery, but a symbol of her perseverance and her promise to Daniel to build a worthy future. As the business thrived, Anna began to dream of expanding even further, of opening new locations and bringing her desserts to other cities. Anna's new beginning was more than a personal victory. It was proof that with effort and perseverance, any adversity could be overcome. Now, every night as she closed the bakery, she felt she was one step closer to fulfilling her promise, to building a life where her dignity and stability didn't depend on anyone else. The injustice and pain had transformed into an unyielding determination, and Anna, with her firm hands and hopeful heart, moved forward, building a legacy that would unknowingly change her life and many others. The success of Sweet Hopes didn't take long to materialize. Over the months, Anna's small bakery became a busy place in the neighborhood. People came not only for the quality of the cakes and desserts, but also because Anna's story, though not everyone knew the details, was present in every corner of the business. Customers felt a unique warmth in her bakery, a welcoming atmosphere that invited them to stay, to savor not only the sweets, but also the effort and dedication behind them. Anna's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. Her bakery, which had started with simple products, gained popularity among the city's residents, and even some customers enthusiastically recommended her to friends and family. Anna's homemade desserts, with their authentic flavors and personal touch, stood out among other shops in the area, and little by little her clientele grew to fill her small space during peak hours. With the income from the bakery, Anna managed to stabilize her home situation. The constant financial worries that had tormented her began to dissipate, and now she could send enough money to her sister Lucia to cover all of Daniel's medical expenses. This change brought Anna an unknown peace, a sense of accomplishment that filled her with pride. The bakery, which had initially been just a means of survival, had become the engine of a much larger dream. As the demand for her products increased, Anna began to consider the possibility of expanding her business. Despite her initial fears, she dared to take the next step. She hired 2 assistants to help serve customers and prepare more desserts, allowing her to focus on new recipes and improving business operations. Among the new employees was Rosario, a young mother who, like Anna, needed the job to support her family. Rosario was diligent and dedicated, and Anna identified with her story, offering support and teaching her the secrets of her recipes. Sweet Hopes became a small family, a space where effort and dedication were valued above all else. As the business flourished, Anna became known in the city not only for her desserts, but also for her kindness and ability to inspire others. People from all over the city came to her bakery, and soon word spread about a woman who, with humility and hard work, had transformed her life and that of her son. Customers, friends, and even acquaintances from other neighborhoods joined her success, turning her bakery into a gathering place for those seeking not only sweets, but also hope and motivation. With Carmen's help, her mentor, Anna, began attending local business fairs and community events. There, she shared her story with other women who, like her, dreamed of building something of their own. With each talk, Anna recalled the difficult days when she had started, the desperation of having no options, but also the determination that had led her to overcome obstacles. Her story inspired many attendees, and soon she began collaborating with a network of women entrepreneurs, helping to organize workshops and sharing her experiences on how to build a business from the ground up. The next step in her growth came when a local investor, impressed by the quality and popularity of Sweet Hopes, offered her the chance to open a second store in a nearby neighborhood. At first, Anna hesitated. She feared losing the personal and close touch that had made her business a success. But after careful consideration and discussions with Carmen and Rosario, she decided to accept the proposal. Thus was born the second branch of Sweet Hopes, this time with a more modern decor and a broader product range, but with the same spirit of effort and dedication that characterized her original store. The second branch quickly became a success, and Anna began to see her dream take on dimensions she had never considered possible. From a modest location in a small neighborhood, her business was now starting to attract people from other areas. Orders began to come in from companies, cafes, and even restaurants that requested her products to serve to their customers. The quality and the value of her story of perseverance gave her business a unique appeal, and Sweet Hopes established itself as one of the region's preferred bakery chains. As her business thrived, Anna maintained constant contact with her family, especially with Daniel. With each call, she told him about new achievements, new stores, new dreams they had forged together. For Daniel, his mother had become an example of courage and perseverance, and her increasingly strong and confident voice reassured him that a better future was on the way. Lucia shared with Anna how the boy had started to tell his classmates about his mother's story at school, inspired by her sacrifice and effort. "My mom has a bakery," he proudly told his friends, and for Anna, knowing that her son saw her as a role model was the greatest reward she could receive. Despite her success, Anna never lost her humility or her gratitude towards those who helped her along the way. She always remembered Carmen, her mentor, and each person who had offered her support and friendship when she needed it the most. Over time, she began organizing community events at her stores, inviting women entrepreneurs to showcase and sell their products at one of her monthly fairs. In this way, Sweet Hopes became not only a bakery chain, but also a space for mutual support and opportunities for women who, like her, sought to transform their lives. With each new achievement, Anna felt how her years of sacrifice and pain transformed into a positive legacy, something that inspired others and filled her with pride. From her humble beginnings, she had created a bakery chain that not only provided economic stability, but also the power to change lives and give back to the community that had embraced her. What began as a small spark of hope had turned into a beacon of inspiration. And Anna understood that all this growth was not solely hers. It also belonged to her son, her sister, her mentors, and all the people who believed in her. With the expansion of her business and the success she had achieved in such a short time, Anna felt ready to confront the past and close a chapter. She decided to return to her hometown, intending to open a branch of Sweet Hopes in the very place she had left, in the location where she had been humiliated and despised. But this time, she would return not as an employee seeking an opportunity, but as a respected businesswoman, with a network of stores that reflected her effort, dignity, and success. Returning to her city represented more than just a step for expansion. It was an act of redemption and personal overcoming. Anna knew that going back meant facing the past, remembering the wounds and the pain, but also showing that she had managed to build her future without relying on anyone. This time, she would return with her head held high, empowered to share her story as proof that despite the difficulties, effort and dignity would always find a way to success. As she prepared to return, Anna couldn't help but smile. Her life had completely changed, and although the scars of the past remained, each one reminded her that the pain had been her driving force to build something beautiful and enduring. Anna's story was not over. It was just beginning. As Anna thrived in her new city and watched Sweet Hopes become a symbol of authentic success, the life of Joachim Johnson, the man who had once despised and humiliated her, began to crumble into a spiral of uncertainty and problems he never imagined facing. From the beginning, Joachim had stood out in the business world for his determination and his ruthless ability to crush the competition. His luxury food company had dominated the market for years and had earned a reputation as the exclusive supplier for many high-profile restaurants and cafes in the city. However, what Joachim didn't realize was that times were changing, and his business model, built on exclusivity and ostentation, was beginning to fall behind in a market that now valued authenticity and genuine effort. The first signs of his company's decline came subtly. Sales of some of his flagship products, once considered indispensable in the best establishments, began to decline steadily. At first, Joachim attributed this to temporary fluctuations and thought that, as always, he could impose his brand and power to maintain customer loyalty. But as months passed, the drops in sales not only persisted, but worsened. As the numbers fell, Joachim's regular customers began to turn to a new supplier, a small bakery chain that was rapidly sweeping the market with fresh, quality products and a homemade touch. What perplexed Joachim the most was that this competition did not come from a large corporation or a well-known name, but from a small bakery that had expanded quickly and was capturing the most valuable contracts in the sector. One of Joachim's closest investors had mentioned this new competitor to him, highlighting the growing interest in authenticity and personal connection with the products people consumed. However, Joachim, in his arrogance, ignored the warnings and dismissed this small chain as a passing trend without significance. Nonetheless, the situation grew increasingly serious. Customers who had remained loyal to Joachim for years were now showing interest in this bakery's products, mentioning the freshness of their desserts and the inspiring story behind the business. Joachim's frustration mounted as he discovered that many of his clients, some with whom he had maintained business relationships for decades, were choosing to end their contracts to work with this new company. He attempted to approach his business partners, offering discounts and more flexible terms, but the response was always the same. We want something different, something real. Over time, Joachim began to notice how his image eroded among his most influential contacts. Rumors about his inflexible attitude and refusal to adapt to market changes began to spread, and investors, who had until then regarded him as an undisputed leader, started to express doubts about his vision and ability to save the company. In every board meeting, Joachim felt the uncomfortable stares of his partners and the growing impatience of those who once admired him. Some pressured him to make radical changes and adapt to the new market demands, but he stubbornly refused to accept that the problem was his lack of flexibility and empathy. For Joachim, accepting change was a sign of weakness. After all, he had built his empire on a foundation of absolute power and rigorous control, and he couldn't imagine making decisions based on current trends or what his customers might consider authentic. However, that same arrogance that had once given him success was now becoming his worst enemy, blinding him to the reality of the market and causing him to lose more and more customers and investors. As losses mounted, frustration and stress consumed Joachim. Board meetings, which had once been occasions of adulation and respect for his figure, turned into tense gatherings filled with questioning. In every meeting, his partners and major investors demanded explanations and concrete strategies to stop the company's decline. Joachim, cornered and furious, tried to defend his position, insisting that he had everything under control and that the business would regain its stability. However, the results were evident, and his promises became empty words for investors seeking a real and urgent solution. The pressure became unbearable when one of his main investors, tired of Joachim's inaction and arrogance, confronted him openly during one of the meetings. "Joachim, we cannot ignore reality. This competition has captured our market, and you refuse to see that customers are no longer looking for luxury products, but for authenticity. How much longer are we going to continue losing clients due to your inability to adapt?" The investor's words echoed in the room, and for the first time, Joachim felt his control over the company weakening in the face of the disbelief of his own partners. Unable to deny it any longer, Joachim finally decided to thoroughly investigate the competition that threatened him so much. He discovered that the bakery chain in question was Sweet Hopes, a business that had started as a small shop and now boasted several branches throughout the city, each more successful than the last. What bewildered Joachim the most was the emotional impact this chain had on its customers. Reviews and recommendations not only mentioned the quality of the products, but also the story of effort and perseverance behind the brand. People seemed to have an emotional connection with Sweet Hopes, a bond that for Joachim made no sense. Determined to learn more, Joachim requested a detailed report on the owner of the chain. When the report landed in his hands, he flipped through it disinterestedly until he came across a name that sounded vaguely familiar. Then, his eyes froze, and his breath became irregular as he read the owner's full name: Anna Brown. The image of Anna surged in his mind, recalling that incident in his mansion when he had publicly humiliated her and dismissed her without a second thought. Stunned, Joachim couldn't believe that the competition threatening to destroy his empire belonged to the very woman he had despised and humiliated without remorse. Memories of that night flooded back, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his disdain and the coldness with which he had treated Anna. Joachim rose from his chair, a mix of rage and confusion coursing through him. How was it possible that the woman he had deemed insignificant had become the leader of a business capable of snatching away his most important clients? The idea felt almost humiliating. He had built his entire life on the belief that he was superior to others, that his success and fortune gave him the power to dictate the fate of those he considered inferior. But now that same woman, that insignificant employee, was in a position to destroy his empire. For days, Joachim tried to regain control of the situation, meeting with partners, sending reconciliation offers to his former clients, and looking for ways to recapture the market he had lost. However, his efforts were fruitless. The popularity of Sweet Hopes continued to grow, and more customers chose the authenticity and effort represented by Anna's brand over the luxury products and elitism that characterized Joachim's company. Faced with his inability to reverse the decline of his business and under the insistence of his investors, Joachim began to consider an option he had never thought possible: seeking a partnership with Anna. Although the idea felt humiliating, he knew that his situation was critical and that time was running out. The company he had built over the years was on the verge of collapse, and the only possibility for survival seemed to lie with the woman he had mercilessly despised. Joachim met with his partners and communicated his plan to approach Anna and propose a collaboration. While some looked at him skeptically, others supported the idea, seeing Anna as an admirable entrepreneur and her business as a model that had proven successful. For Joachim, this situation was a deep wound to his pride, but he knew he had no other option if he wanted to save his company. The news of the meeting was received with surprise by Anna, who had never imagined that the same man who had once humiliated her would come seeking her help. The situation was ironic and painful, but it also represented a moment of closure and overcoming for her. Anna, with the dignity and confidence she had gained throughout her journey, agreed to meet with Joachim, but not with the intention of rescuing him, rather to finally confront the source of so much suffering. In that meeting, Joachim would come face to face with the woman who, without intending to, had transformed her life and business into a symbol of genuine success and hope. For the first time, Joachim would feel the true magnitude of his mistakes, and Anna would have the opportunity to show him that a person's worth is not measured by their wealth or power, but by their ability to overcome adversity with effort and humility. That encounter would mark the beginning of a lesson Joachim would never forget. The day of the meeting finally arrived. Joachim, who had spent weeks debating with himself, trying to convince himself that he had no other choice, headed to the agreed location with a mix of wounded pride and anxiety. Despite all he had lost and the collapse of his company, remnants of the arrogance that had characterized him throughout his life still lingered within him. The idea of being in a position of supplication, of asking for help from someone he had despised and humiliated, felt almost unbearable. Isabella, his daughter, had convinced him that this meeting was necessary. Isabella, who had been working on community projects in the city and had reconnected with Anna and her story, insisted that he needed to confront his mistakes, even if it meant facing his own pride. Isabella looked at him with a mix of compassion and firmness, reminding him that this was not just an opportunity to save his company, but also a chance to redeem himself from the mistakes that had caused so much harm to himself and those around him. Joachim arrived at the meeting place early, as was his habit, but this time not to impose his presence, but because the weight of the situation filled him with nervousness. They had agreed to meet in a small cafe that, ironically, served some of the products from Sweet Hopes. While he waited, Joachim couldn't help but notice the warmth of the place, the cozy atmosphere, and the smiles on the faces of customers enjoying their desserts. Everything was so different from the coldness of his businesses, the establishments filled with empty luxury that sought only to impress. This place, with its simplicity and charm, reflected something he could not comprehend: success based on affection and authenticity, on genuine effort to provide something meaningful to others. At last, the cafe door opened, and Anna appeared with a firm stride. She was no longer the timid, submissive cleaning employee he had known. Now, every step she took reflected the confidence of someone who knew who she was and had earned her place in the world through effort and dignity. Dressed simply yet elegantly, her demeanor radiated assurance as Anna looked directly into his eyes. Joachim felt a lump in his throat. Never before had he felt so small. Anna sat down silently across from him, waiting for him to take the initiative. Joachim, uncomfortable and aware that this time he didn't have control over the situation, decided to start with an awkward apology. Anna, I want to thank you for agreeing to meet me. I know that after what happened, you shouldn't have to do this, but... His voice trembled slightly. But I'm here to make amends. I think I've made serious mistakes. Anna looked at him with unyielding calm, her eyes reflecting a mix of firmness and compassion. She had waited a long time for this moment, but she no longer felt the resentment of old. She had transformed her pain into strength, and she knew that Joachim's words no longer held the power to affect her. I know why you're here, Joachim, Anna replied, keeping her gaze fixed on him. It's not for an apology. It's because your company is in crisis and you need help. Isn't that right? Anna's words struck directly at his pride. Joachim felt the weight of truth and shame, but he tried to maintain his composure. He knew he couldn't evade reality, and although every part of him wanted to hide his situation, he acknowledged that Anna had earned the right to know the truth. It's true, Anna. My company is going through a difficult time. The competition... Joachim took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every word. Your business has captured the market I once dominated, and my investors believe a partnership with Sweet Hopes is our only option for survival. That's why I'm here, to ask you to consider helping us. Anna listened in silence, showing no trace of satisfaction or vengeance. Her success no longer depended on what Joachim thought, and she was there not to retaliate, but to confront her past, confident in the knowledge that she had moved on. Joachim, do you realize what you are asking me? Anna asked in a low voice, but with a firmness that made him hesitate for a moment. You fired me without a chance to defend myself, humiliated me in front of all your guests, and left me without income, with a sick child at home and no options. You used your influence to close all the doors for me in the city, and for a long time, I thought everything was lost. And now, after all that, you come to ask me to save you. Anna's words filled him with profound shame. He recalled that night, the coldness with which he had treated her, and the contempt with which he had dictated her dismissal. Every word Anna spoke was a wound he had inflicted on himself, and for the first time in his life, Joachim felt the real weight of his actions. You are right, Anna, he admitted, looking down. I don't deserve your help. What I did to you was cruel and unforgivable. But, his voice trembled, I've learned the hard way that power and money are not everything. I've lost my daughter, my friends, and now my company is on the verge of collapse. I have nothing left, and that's why I'm here, because you have accomplished what I couldn't. You built something authentic, something that truly matters to people. Anna nodded, but not with the intention of comforting him. Her words didn't seek to ease his conscience, but to make him understand that in life, every action has consequences. Joachim, success is not built on contempt or arrogance. Sweet Hopes was born from an act of humiliation, but it is not based on revenge. It is founded on respect and effort, on the dedication I put in every day. And that's why it has grown, because I have learned to value people, to understand that work is not just a way to make money, but a means to create something that inspires and supports others. Joachim realized there were no words that could justify his actions, and in that moment, he felt a sincerity he had never known rising from within. Anna, if there's anything I can do to redeem myself, if I can prove to you that I've changed, tell me how. I know I've lost my company, but I can do something. I need to learn. I need to be a better person. Anna looked at him in silence for a few seconds. She thought of all the time she had suffered because of him, of the doors that had closed, of the fear she had felt from not being able to give her son what he needed. But she also thought of the woman she had become, of the strength she had developed, and of the freedom she felt now, a freedom that no longer depended on anyone else's validation. Joachim, I'm not going to save your company, she replied in a calm voice. I'm not going to teach your investors a lesson about success, because that is something you must learn yourself. But there is something I can offer you." Joachim looked at her, waiting with uncertainty. Anna took a deep breath and, with a voice full of determination, made a proposal he had never imagined. "If you really want to understand the value of effort and respect, I offer you a job at one of my stores. Not as a partner, not as a boss, but as an employee, starting from scratch. There you can learn what it means to earn the respect of others, not by your power, but through your work and dedication." Anna's offer was humiliating, but it also represented the only opportunity for redemption. Joachim felt his pride crumble at the thought of working for the woman he had despised, but he also knew that this was the only way to understand the meaning of humility and dignity that he had never possessed. "I accept," he finally said, his voice broken. "I will do whatever it takes." Anna nodded, satisfied, but not intending to humiliate him. She wanted to give him the opportunity to learn. With that decision, both knew that a new chapter in Joachim's life was beginning, a chapter that would lead him to confront the mistakes of his past and to build, from the ground up, a new path. For Anna, the circle was closing, and with it, she felt the wounds of the past healing once and for all. The reunion with Joachim was not a victory, but a testament that pain and injustice could transform into something much greater. She had returned to her city to face her past, but also to demonstrate that, with effort and dignity, anyone could attain the peace and freedom that only true forgiveness can grant. With the meeting concluded, Anna left with the tranquility of having closed a chapter of her life, while Joachim, for the first time, faced the reality of a life built from humility. Joachim's first day as an employee at one of the Sweet Hopes stores was a harsh blow to his pride. He found himself in a modest location on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by people who would never have imagined who he was or the power he once wielded. The man who had once owned an empire now wore a simple uniform and performed tasks many would consider trivial. All of this was a lesson in humility, an opportunity for redemption, but also a challenge he was unsure he could face. His day began with Rosario, one of Anna's employees, who was tasked with training him in the basic operations of the store. Rosario was young, but her experience in the job showed in every detail. From the way she organized the ingredients to how she attended to each customer with kindness and attention, Rosario displayed an expertise Joachim had never deemed important. To him, people doing such work were mere resources. He had never truly paid attention to them. However, now he realized that every detail mattered, that every step in the process required care and dedication. Rosario explained that his first task would be to clean and organize the preparation area. Joachim nodded without complaining, but inside he felt profound embarrassment. As he took the cloth and began wiping the surfaces, his hands trembled slightly. It was a simple task, one that required no special skills or qualifications, but it demanded patience and attention. As he wiped down the counters and organized the utensils, he couldn't help but remember all the people he had once looked down upon for doing this type of work. Hours passed, and Rosario showed him how to prepare some of the basic ingredients for the cakes. She worked with meticulous movements, patiently explaining each step, a kindness that surprised Joachim. Sweet Hopes was not just a store, it was a place where every worker was valued and where everyone's effort was recognized. Rosario, aware that Joachim was new to these tasks, provided support without judging him, and he, astonished by her patience, tried to follow every instruction without question. As the days went by, Joachim began to grasp the importance of the small tasks he had once considered insignificant. He learned to prepare the cake mixes, to measure ingredients accurately, and to decorate the desserts with care. Each process demanded time and dedication, and he soon understood that the success of Sweet Hopes was not only due to the quality of its products, but also to the love and effort every employee put into their work. Despite the long hours and fatigue, Joachim began to feel a satisfaction he had never experienced in his previous life, a gratitude stemming from the simple act of creating something with his own hands. Interactions with customers also became a lesson in humility for Joachim. At first, he was not accustomed to treating customers in a friendly manner. His instinct was to keep them at a distance, as if they were merely consumers of his product. But Rosario taught him that at Sweet Hopes, every customer was treated like a friend, someone deserving of special attention. Initially, this closeness felt uncomfortable to him, but little by little, he began to notice the difference a kind gesture or a smile could make in the experience of those visiting the store. One afternoon, while attending to a regular customer, she enthusiastically commented on how much she loved the story behind the bakery and Anna's efforts to build her business. Joachim, who had never valued the idea of connecting with the public, began to understand why customers returned again and again. It was not just for the taste of the products, but because each of them felt they were part of something special. Listening to these stories, Joachim felt a mix of shame and pride. Shame because he had never understood what it meant to treat customers with genuine respect, and pride because he was now part of a team that truly valued every person. Joachim's co-workers initially treated him with a certain distance. They knew he was a man in decline, someone there to learn a lesson, and although no one looked at him with disdain, they didn't make things easy for him either. They treated him as an equal, as someone who, regardless of his past, had to earn respect through hard work and dedication. It was during those days of silent work, feeling the weight of exhaustion on his shoulders, that he began to remember his treatment of his former employees, those who, like Anna, had dedicated their lives to humble jobs and whom he had never valued. One of the hardest moments for Joachim came when a co-worker, Gabriel, directly asked him about his former company. Gabriel, a man in his 40s, had worked for several food companies and knew the story of Joachim and his treatment of employees. With a sincerity that made Joachim uncomfortable, Gabriel asked, "Joachim, how does someone like you end up here, working for a store like Sweet Hopes?" Joachim, unable to lie, decided to speak honestly for the first time in a long time. "The truth, Gabriel, is that I was an arrogant man. I thought money and power were everything. I humiliated many people, and in the process, I lost those who mattered most. I didn't understand the value of others, and now I'm here to learn what I never wanted to see." Gabriel looked at him in silence, and after a moment, he gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Then you are in the right place. Here, respect is earned, Joachim, every day, with everything we do. Perhaps this is your chance to start over." Over time, Joachim began to see in his co-workers not just colleagues, but valuable people with their own stories and struggles. Gabriel, for example, worked long hours to save money to pay for his children's university. Rosario dreamed of opening her own sewing business, saving a little of her salary each month to achieve it. Each person had a purpose, a reason for being there, and Joachim began to admire the strength of those working beside him. For the first time in his life, he understood that true respect was earned through humility and effort, not through orders or imposition. Isabella, his daughter, visited him from time to see how he was progressing. At first, their relationship had been tense. She had lost trust in him years ago and found it hard to believe her father could really change. However, with each visit, Isabella noticed something different about Joachim, a sincerity in his words, a gratitude in his gaze, and a humility she had never seen before. Although she still had reservations, she decided to give him a chance and gradually began to accompany him in some of his community projects. In those projects, Joachim found a new purpose. Working alongside Isabella on charitable causes, he discovered the satisfaction of helping others without expecting anything in return. He volunteered in programs that supported low-income individuals, collaborating in community kitchens and youth education initiatives. Isabella, seeing his commitment, began to open up emotionally, and together they started the process of rebuilding their relationship based on respect and empathy. Day by day, Joachim earned the respect of his co-workers at Sweet Hopes. His attitude shifted from initial coldness to a genuine willingness to learn and collaborate. Now he was the one helping new employees, the one cleaning with care, and the one preparing each order with the same dedication as everyone else. His transformation was neither quick nor easy, but slowly, the man who had once been arrogant and haughty became someone humble and grateful for the second chance life was giving him. At the end of each day, Joachim returned home tired, but with a peace he had never felt in his years of opulence. The work, although exhausting, provided him with a sense of purpose and connected him with those around him in a way he had never experienced. He now understood that success was not about luxury or power, but about respect and building something valuable through effort and dedication. The memories of his former life as a mogul faded over time, and Joachim fully embraced this new chapter. He learned to see value in every small act, in every smile from his customers, and in every thank you from his co-workers. At Sweet Hopes, he found not only a second chance for redemption, but also a family, a community of people who, like him, sought to build a better life. Joachim, the man who had once despised those he considered inferior, had transformed into someone who now understood the value of humility and respect. He had lost his company, but he had gained something much more valuable, a purposeful life, a renewed relationship with his daughter, and above all, a peace that only genuine remorse and redemption can provide. Years passed, and the transformations that both Anna and Joachim underwent left an indelible mark on the city and on the people who once were part of their lives. Anna, now a well-established entrepreneur and community leader, had expanded Sweet Hopes to several cities in the region, turning it into a bakery chain known for its quality and for the inspiring message behind each cake and pastry. But beyond commercial success, Anna dedicated much of her time to support projects for women entrepreneurs, women who, like her, dreamed of transforming their lives and overcoming adversity. Meanwhile, Joachim found a purpose greater than he had ever imagined. His time at Sweet Hopes taught him to value humble effort, and that lesson led him to re-evaluate his entire life. His years of service at the bakery revealed a side of life he had previously ignored, the value of every person, and the impact a kind word or an outstretched hand could have. With no fortune or luxuries, Joachim found peace and purpose in helping others, committing himself to build a life of service and solidarity. Over time, Anna and Joachim became role models in their community. Anna was not only a successful businesswoman, but also a mentor to hundreds of women who saw in her story an example of perseverance and overcoming challenges. Her commitment led her to organize free workshops in her stores, inviting aspiring female entrepreneurs to learn about finance, management, and baking. Additionally, she started the Day of Hope event, an annual fair where women from different communities shared their projects and connected with each other to grow together. What had begun as a small gathering transformed into a regional event that attracted hundreds of people each year. As the event grew, Isabella, Joachim's daughter, joined Anna's mission, working alongside her to organize workshops and fairs. Isabella, who had witnessed her father's transformation, deeply admired Anna and saw in her the example of the strong and just woman she had always aspired to be. Isabella became not only Anna's right hand, but also a committed leader in the community, dedicated to inspiring and supporting other women in their dreams. Joachim, for his part, founded a non-profit organization called New Opportunity, focused on providing job training and psychological support to low-income individuals who, like him, sought a fresh start. With the savings he still had from his previous life, Joachim financed job reintegration programs and scholarships for at-risk youth, focusing on helping people of all ages regain their dignity through work. For him, this project was more than a social endeavor. It was his way of redeeming himself and sharing with others the lessons he had learned. As his relationship with Isabella strengthened, Joachim also integrated into the community projects of Sweet Hopes, collaborating with Anna and Isabella on programs supporting entrepreneurs and youth. The emotional distance that had existed between him and his daughter transformed into closeness based on respect and genuine love. Isabella began to see him with an admiration she had never felt before, recognizing in him a man who had profoundly changed and who was striving every day to live with integrity and empathy. Daniel's life, Anna's son, also underwent a profound transformation thanks to his mother's effort and dedication. With the stable income and success of Sweet Hopes, Anna was able to provide Daniel with all the medical treatments he needed. Years of sacrifice and hard work allowed Daniel to achieve remarkable improvement in his health. He grew up healthy and strong, and inspired by his mother's example, developed a keen interest in medicine and community service. Motivated by the stories of effort and redemption surrounding his life, Daniel decided to study medicine, driven by the desire to give back to others the help that his mother and family had provided him. Upon finishing his studies, Daniel became a doctor, specializing in the care of children with chronic illnesses, dedicating his life to helping families in situations similar to what he and his mother faced during his childhood. For Anna, watching her son transform into a compassionate and committed man was the greatest reward, a reflection of the sacrifice and love she had invested in every step of the way. Anna also decided to document her story in a book titled Sweeter Than Pain. In it, she recounted her life, from the dark days when she lost her job to the construction of Sweet Hopes, and her life as a businesswoman and community leader. The book was a success, becoming an inspiration for thousands who saw in her story a testament to resilience. The profits from the book allowed Anna to expand her support projects for women and fund educational programs in rural areas, spreading her message of hope and overcoming to communities that also struggled for a better future. At one of the book presentations, Anna invited Joachim to share his story in front of the audience. Although he felt hesitant at first, Joachim eventually accepted, understanding that his testimony could inspire others. Standing next to Anna, he looked at the crowd and spoke candidly about his mistakes, his pride, and the lesson he had learned by rebuilding his life from humility. "Years ago," Joachim said, "I was an arrogant man, blind to the value of the people working alongside me. I thought success was measured in money and power, but I was profoundly wrong. Thanks to Anna and the example she and my daughter have given me, I learned that true success lies in respect, in the effort, and in the dedication with which we live and help others." Joachim's words resonated with the audience, and that night, he and Anna received a standing ovation. Together, they had demonstrated that the power of redemption is real, and that genuine effort and remorse can transform any life. The story of Anna and Joachim became a legend in their community. For those who knew them, Sweet Hopes was much more than a bakery chain. It was a symbol of second chances, humility, and the strength that resides in every person who fights for their dreams. As the years went by, both Anna and Joachim continued to dedicate themselves to their causes. Anna remained a leader in her business, expanding it and using her influence to support other women entrepreneurs. Joachim continued working at New Opportunity, providing second chances to people seeking a new life. Isabella, committed to her parents' values, became the director of the community projects at Sweet Hopes, leading a support network for entrepreneurs and solidifying her mother's vision of creating a fairer and more supportive world. Years later, a plaque with the names of Anna, Joachim, and Daniel was placed in one of the main stores of Sweet Hopes, with an inscription reflecting the spirit of their lives. "True success is not in power or money, but in humility, love, and service to others. May our story inspire those who struggle for a sweeter future." In their old age, Anna and Joachim became mentors to the new generations, sharing their teachings in talks and events. They both knew that their legacy was not just about a business or a foundation, but about the story they had built, a story of redemption, transformation, and the strength found in the will to help others. Daniel, now a respected doctor, continued his life following his mother's example. Every patient, every child he treated, received the same attention and care he had received in his childhood. He knew that his mother's sacrifice and Joachim's change had been fundamental in his life, and every day he honored that legacy by helping those in need. Thus, the story of Anna and Joachim was immortalized, not only in the walls of a bakery or the pages of a book, but in the hearts of every person they touched with their example. They had proven that forgiveness, redemption, and love could change lives and leave an indelible mark on the world. And so we close another inspiring chapter on our channel. The story of Anna and Joachim reminds us that with humility, effort, and love, we can all transform our lives and create a positive impact on those around us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications for more content that inspires you. Until next time, and remember, a sweeter future is always possible.